Welcome to Level Up TV, and we're back with our kind of podcast show, I guess. We're talking it, and today joining me is Vor. Hello, Vor.
Hi,
Hey,
super regular podcast here.
super regular, and the big man himself. It's NVC.
Hi, not happy to be here.
Not happy to be here. Why?
I'm jesting.
Oh, I don't get your comedy. Sorry.
He's a jester.
Well, as we saw in the pictures from DreamHack, didn't we? We're too good. Yeah. Interesting. Right. So, first. First sort of topic of call is really Quake and the
Really?
Fan-Based Nations Cup 2012, which we've been covering for. I mean, firstly, before we get onto that, I just want to say, like, the way we're going to take the show forwards is less like the structured news that we did before, which
It's boring.
was a little bit, yeah, dry.
I didn't enjoy sitting here listening to it. I can't imagine anyone else did.
Well, I don't know, like 1,000 people or whatever did actually Vor, so
What do you mean 1,000? I thought it was more
yeah,
than that.
1,000,
10,000?
10,000 maybe, 30,000, quite a lot. So anyway, yeah, Clan-Based Nations Cup 2012, we've been covering it for. Seen some
We
good
have.
matches thus far, but the important thing I want to talk about is the controversial Russia versus Italy match last night. Just a little bit of a background on that. They're both in the same group, obviously.
Well,
Was it
obviously.
Group B. Uh,
No?
Group C, D, D.
You
There's
don't
not
even
many
know.
letters in the
It's
alphabet.
embarrassing, really.
You'll get it eventually.
Yeah, it's probably Group F. Playing their match, Russia, famous victory. Pretty close game, actually. You can go and check the VODs on
Well, hey,
Level Up
not
TV
just a
on
close
YouTube.
game. It was a really good game to watch. I mean, Russia played really well in it, and so did Italy. It was
Yeah,
one of the best games we've covered so far in this Nations Cup.
definitely. It was a really
However,
exciting bout. However, we finished the game. We get off the stream. We stopped the VOD. Well, actually, the stream is still on, but the VOD stopped. Talking on IRC. Suddenly, FRS highlights the fact that Russia played a team of 4 players, all from the same clan.
You probably should highlight that Finland aren't actually playing in the cup themselves, so it was kind of, well, not ironic, but obvious that they were going to pick up on that because that's why they couldn't play.
Well, this is this
All of their
ruling
team
in
played for the same
clan-based Nations Cup, which says that you can't play with 4 players from the same clan, and the date it goes back to is if you've ever been a part of that clan since last September, was it?
I think it was
October,
October,
sorry,
the end
yeah.
of October.
Yeah. So it goes back to last year to the present, basically. That if you've been part of a clan, then you can't play as a total 4 from that clan. And I mean, I don't know what the reason for that kind of rule is, to stop monopolies of clans just taking over nations teams or something.
Well,
Yeah, I
think
guess that's the idea, but we've pointed out before, it doesn't really work in Quake Live because there isn't really that many great players from certain countries. Finland, they've said specifically themselves, if they don't pick XT as the Finland lineup, then they have to go with players that have got notably less experience and that they're not used to playing with, so it lowers the quality of their team.
And so lowers the quality of the Cup's TDM overall, doesn't it?
Yeah, it lowers the level of play.
Yeah.
I think the important thing to note is actually in previous Nations Cups, such as the ones run by Leggy, I think back in the day, QQZ was it? I
Yeah.
can't remember. They actually had allowed A team and B team, and that was kind of a way to get around, the issue of not being able to field everybody in a nation. You could always field a B team if there was enough players.
That is actually quite a good point, because I guess one of the issues is there's only 4 slots in a game, and obviously you're going to choose maybe the best team, which would probably be from one clan,
Yeah.
if that clan plays together. But having a B team gives the opportunity for players that aren't in the same clan get a bit
Yeah,
of
and
experience.
it gets around what the rule's trying to achieve. Where the rule is there so that you don't get one clique of people from one country, you don't get along with another. Just saying we're never going to pick you guys, we're only going to pick our clan. The rule's there to stop that. It's just in Quake Live, there's not really enough players for it to ever be an issue.
So
And it
essentially,
does hurt it obviously hurts teams like Finland.
yeah,
Yeah.
essentially that is why Finland. I mean, I didn't agree with what they did because they just quit out in the middle of a match after the first map and then dropped out the tournament. But it still stopped them from effectively playing with the team they wanted to play with in the Nations Cup that they felt would be their best lineup and had their best chance of
Yeah,
going
and
far in it.
it takes a team, and a team that we've seen in previous Nations Cup has been very strong. It takes that team totally out of the competition now because they're just not willing to play under that circumstance.
Yeah, I mean, what's the Nations Cup without Finland? They're obviously one of the stronger teams as well.
Yeah, they've
Most
been a
active, yeah.
mainstay in pretty much every Nations Cup. They've had a good finish. You know, they've always got out of their groups, as far as I know, and made it into the knockouts.
Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, that's what Clanbase said, so we have to go by that rule, I suppose. But I think there's two ways to look at what happened. On one hand, the team readied up Italy before the game, thereby, kind of saying, okay, we agree to play with your lineup. So on one hand, I think it's kind of wrong to maybe give a forfeit win to Italy, even though Russia did go against the rules because Italy readied up. But on the other hand, obviously everybody knew the rule. It was very focused on, you mentioned yesterday, Disrepute, by the admins before the tournament started. And even though Dozer, the tournament admin, wasn't in the server, as you again pointed out,
Yeah, I think it's one of
the
the
rule
very
was there.
few matches
Well,
that
that's
he's
the
actually
thing, though,
managed
isn't
to
it?
not be available for. So
Is it really Italy's responsibility to have to go and check lineups? I mean, they might not have known that that was one clan because, Sturmy, he hasn't really been active that much in online TDM competitions, and I also don't think that the rest of the Italian team has played recent seasons because obviously Flash used to play with Metsu, but that clan hasn't been competing for quite a while now, so they just may not have been aware. I mean, we weren't aware either, even though we probably covered the Euro Cup final.
yeah,
It took FRS pointing it out after the game to bring us to realise.
Yeah,
yeah.
but I mean, yeah, okay.
Well, let's just say the outcome of it was the next day the results entered onto the site, and in fact, it's been a default victory for Italy, and a red
Yeah.
card being given to
And of
Russia.
course, if Russia were to receive a second red card, I can't imagine they will, but that would be them out of the tournament as well. So that would be no Finland, no Russia.
Yeah, I don't. There's so many ways to look at it. I don't think anything is necessarily right or wrong when it comes down to it. But if the rule is as it stands, I personally believe that it should come down to the teams to check. The history is there on the site. If you're really that bothered and want to check, which you should because it's a Nations Cup, then you should check yourself. But I can totally
disagree.
see. Yeah, but I mean at the same time, I can totally understand the standing of the rule being there and Italy getting the.
Are you talking about the opponents
win.
checking though?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't
No.
agree with that. I mean, I honestly think
The responsibility's on Russia.
The
Now, they
responsibility's
may
on
have
Russia,
just
yeah.
not read the rule because I'm sure they wouldn't have fielded that team if they had because they knew they were going to get a default given against them.
yeah.
But
Which
do you
is,
think?
it's kind of their fault, but it's unfortunate at the same time because they probably didn't read the rule.
hmm
And they've played and they perhaps wouldn't have played if they'd understood the rules correctly, so they've been defaulted when they'd have been made aware of it by an admin at the time. They'd have
Yeah.
probably changed their lineup and not had that default given against them.
I mean, at the same time, you could also counter-argue maybe clan-based. It's about time they actually had a feature on their website that would show players allowed to play and players not allowed to
Well,
play.
they do have an allowed
Um,
players list, don't they? But the problem
Yeah.
is, obviously, that's just the whole list of players, and all those players would have been allowed to play. It just depends on the lineup.
Mm.
So I guess it could go into more detail there.
Yeah, of course, I didn't even. Yeah, sorry.
Counterproductive though, because if Finland want to play with their what they perceive to be their best lineup in the next Nations Cup, then it kind of says that they shouldn't enter the Euro Cup.
Yeah, it's so backwards. They're going to have to choose whether or not they want to play as XT or play as their best Finland lineup, which, I don't know, that's not good for people who enjoy watching these games because that means you're going to have either you're going to have either a weaker XT or a weaker Finland, and you'd rather just see the best of both.
Yeah, and I suppose normally you would have more Euro Cups than you would Nations Cups because Nations Cups, well, for me, is perceived as a novelty, and it should only be perhaps like once a year. I know we used to have ESL Nations Cup, we have Clan-based Nations Cup, but we've only got one at the moment, I believe. And you're probably going to have less frequent Nations Cup, but it's still a small honour, however large you see it to be, to play for your nation. So,
Yeah,
um,
although on that subject, this Nations Cup is, to me, maybe slightly too soon after the ESL Countries Championship, which was towards the end of last year. Normally, we're not used to seeing Nations Cups in such a short space of time.
exactly.
Well, anyway, I think there might be more to come from that in terms of Russia arguing
Yeah,
with the
it's going to be
admins
interesting to see how they react to that. I mean,
and
it's going to be very disappointing for them.
potentially other nations having issues with this rules, like the UK, who've
Yeah, I mean,
changed their squad quite significantly.
from what
Since
we know of the potential UK lineup, I don't see how this rule is not going to affect that lineup.
I mean, it's
yeah,
EK rather than like your typical UK lineup, I suppose, isn't it?
it is apparently.
Well, normally it's very easy for the UK to get around this rule because Deuce has previously mostly played in either Fnatic or Reason, and has actually rarely played in clan-based clan competitions. So it's always easy for the UK to just have Deuce and then whoever else.
Mm.
But this time
Unfortunately,
Deuce
not
isn't playing.
not available.
Yeah, so we'll just have
So,
to see how that one turns out. But
but
other
I
than
think it's probably important to mention though, from our standpoint, or your two standpoint as commentators, I can probably speak on your behalf and say it's not really your decision. You let the admins decide, and we go with that. We don't try and force our opinion on
What?
anyone.
what are you trying to
Well,
say? Of course,
well, we,
mate, we don't. We would never force our opinion on anything else, or give some kind of biased viewpoint on map selection. No, never. We'd never do such a thing.
well, it's sort of separated though, isn't it? Because we like to play the game ourselves as well as commentate. And
This is
I
actually
like to
something
play the game, talk about the game, and control how the game's played
for the better of
for the
society.
better of me enjoying myself playing DM20 and watching it.
That's another thing I actually wanted to
bring
bring
back
up
DM7.
is the map selection from the Nations Cup. So they got rid of finally Deep Inside. I think everybody was hankering to get rid of that, and
Yeah.
they got Grim Dungeons got through the vote, which it should have done.
Well, that was just bizarre. I mean, I know we talked about this before, but how the hell did Grim Dungeons end up in a vote to be part of the map pool?
I don't
seriously.
understand that.
Well, apparently
And yet
Tornado's a
Tornado,
fantastic map.
yeah, I mean, Tornado was in by default, but Grim Dungeons had to be voted on.
Well,
That
yeah,
makes no
this
sense
is
to
this is
me.
the thing. I'm all for new maps. I'm
They have to be
fine
good,
with
though.
that. Exactly. They have to be good, and people have to want to play them. I know you need to force people a little bit, but we saw some Tornado games, and in all honesty, I just don't see much interesting play on those maps when we watch it. I mean, it's all right. It's a little bit interesting. Some of the fact it's got double power ups, I think, makes it a little bit more interesting than maps that only have a single power up, obviously, but generally
really
the
like
kind
it
of
at all.
frags you get, I don't think we've seen anything that spectacular yet.
I mean, people think, oh, it's a small map, it's going to be fast and aggressive like DM20, but really, if you actually watch the two side by side, DM20 is the fast, aggressive, you could say fun map in a way that, you don't really play slowly or carefully.
Like
You're just going
Retribution.
all out. Yeah, kind of like Retribution when you're setting red, but Tornado, it's just the layout of the map. It's so walled off. You can't really always see any action depending on which path you're following. I just don't like it, and the way I feel it's going to end up being played, Tornado, if it continues to be in the map pools, is a lot slower than people expect.
Yeah, I mean the size would suggest it be a fast-paced map, but the architecture of it is a very clear division between the yellow side of the map with the battlesuit and the red area towards the rail. And I guess you get a contested zone over the mega, but to me the mega area is not particularly interesting. It's just this kind of open room where people just rush in to get the mega at the moment.
I say what I really hate, the red armor position. It's just like up on top. You have to go up a bounce pad practically, and the doorway is just not safe because there's just rocket people just standing there. It just seems, I don't know, in a weird and awkward position. I like it to be sort of in an open kind of space.
Well, to me, I think the best designs of maps tend to have armors in safe, holdable positions and weapons in areas that you can
Contest.
contest. Yeah,
Like
Yeah, I
Dreadful
mean,
Place. I mean, I'm really enjoying Dreadful Place recently. Watching it, I
yeah,
haven't
that's a good
played it
point.
much recently, but no, I really think that's a good map. And that was a map that was brought into the game. People tried it. It was in competitions. I think it was pretty much universally agreed that it's a good map. It's here to stay, and that's why we still have it in this Nations Cup and probably most other upcoming cups.
yeah, I think it's
That's
just an
completely in contrast to how Tornado was received, as far as I see it, and I can't understand why Tornado is still being used.
I mean, to
yeah,
me, the other thing as well, it's a Nations Cup. You're basically testing a map in, and I think Nations Cup should sort of aim to be the pinnacle.
yeah. Like I just hope we don't go in the direction and keep going in the direction where we're just replacing good maps with mediocre maps just for the sake of it, because there's some kind of perceived opinion that
Yeah,
new players can't play old maps, and I think that's completely incorrect because DM14 is one of the easiest maps to learn,
I mean,
in my
it's
opinion.
easy to learn how to play it. I mean, doing everything you need to do in a match situation, obviously, it's a good team is entirely different, but to actually learn the way it should be played is not that difficult. And
Yeah,
any new player, if they're serious about competing, is able to watch demos of old games on it, and that actually allows them to learn it by watching how good teams play it.
yeah, and I
Yeah,
think
And
it's one of the only
going
maps
back
that
to
sorry.
replacing, DM14, it couldn't just be, oh, we've got a new map. It's sort of similar, well, supposed to be similar to DM14. We're going to try it instead. It's going to have to be a ridiculously good map to replace DM14.
Yeah, I think it teaches you all the basics you need. You assess the red armor when you need to after a power up. You hold your positions in doorways at your various choke points. You've got a double power up situation. However, you can just commit to one, or you can try and split between both. You have to armor manage between the team and build your power up carrier up, or have him demand like I used to do and probably shouldn't have done. Um, I think it teaches you everything you need to know, and I think if DM14 was to ever go, like you say, it has to be A, good map, but B, I just don't see the point of ever replacing it. I think it's only, I mean, I've always said it, I would like to see tournaments sort of grouped together and follow a season of maps. So you'd quarter the year up, and then during one quarter you'd probably drop one map and introduce a new one, and then during the second quarter you'd drop a different map or maybe that map and introduce another one. So you'd have the rotation, but under no circumstance would I ever see DM14, or should I ever believe DM14 to be removed.
yeah, unless there's something of equal
Well, yeah,
quality, yeah, and sort of play style. But as you say, I mean, it sounds a bit weird because you'd say perhaps it's the most tactical map, but in a way, it isn't the most tactical map because it's so simple. The architecture forces you to play exactly the way you should. Now,
mm,
the tactical element comes in the timing of when to move to different areas and how to play the power-ups specifically. In fact, it focuses on the most interesting elements of Quake, which is the power-up play, because you actually get a chance to pick up those power-ups. You can both sit back either side of the map. You can delay them and choose some kind of tactical pickup. You got the different route selection, so there's a lot more focus on the power-ups. Whereas you think back to something like campgrounds or Purgatory's quad, where it's so open.
Retribution.
Yeah, it's so open. The quad, it really it doesn't. It's not a useful power-up, especially, and it just dies so quickly. You can't really set it up effectively. I mean, Retribution you can to some extent set it
Well,
up,
do you
but
remember what happened at the end of Quake 3, which, interestingly enough, the layout of Retribution has been changed back to what it was in Quake 3. Now, you'd regularly see, if a team was sat at the red armor and they had, rails on everyone, if they were dominating, they wouldn't risk going to quad. They would just sit back at the red and rail it as it came in. That's not really normal, is it? That the power up is actually a negative to go and get.
yeah, and the problem with Quake 3 as well as Quake Live is, well, at least in Quake 3 you had the weapons did a lot more damage. So when you had the quad, it was a bigger impact. But the lowering of the damage values and the only 3 times quad damage in Quake Live means you could potentially, if that kind of situation, do that again, and then maybe
I miss
whole
4
focus.
times damage.
Yeah,
I really do.
seriously powerful power-ups are the way to go, in my opinion. And minor power-ups on maps as well. I'd love to see just haste thrown in there. It doesn't really add too much, but it's just going to be that extra little boost. You can.
It has the potential to be interesting, even if it's not amazingly useful.
Yeah.
Hidden Fortress was a haste slash regen power,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah,
it
I
was.
think quad is the best choice for that.
Yeah,
but,
definitely.
Well, especially with some of the quad runs we've seen recently.
yeah, we see the best quad runs on that map by far, actually. Although some great quad runs yesterday by Italy,
On Dreadful
Russia,
Place,
and
that
Dreadful
was a
Place.
surprise.
Yeah, really good quad runs.
Not a map we associate with good quad runs, and we saw, I think, a couple in that
Were they
one game.
rail-based quadrants?
Sturmy, I think he had a 7 frag quad run on that map, but I think he was using a variety of weapons.
Is it Flash
Oh.
had a rail-based quad run, I think.
Yeah, where he hit 100% rail on it, although he only got 4 kills, I think.
Yeah, but still, they were pretty good runs, and you can check out the VODs on Level Up TV at YouTube.
I think I've also updated the news post as well, so people
Ooh,
can
the
check
news
levelupyourgame.net/news, and it's all
Brilliant,
there.
nice work, novice. So yeah, I mean, in terms of maps going forward, I don't think maps are the most important element of Quake Live anyway. I think we have a good enough map pool that we don't need updated maps, but we know there are some on the way, like FRS's map, and what is it, Akuma?
Yeah,
we
well,
worked with on that.
on
That is a
their
beautiful
way,
map.
How long have they been on the way? I mean, FRS's map, from what I know, I thought that had been withered and ready to go for quite some time now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched this
And-
preview. I was sure I've seen it before.
Yeah, we did a preview video of it.
Yeah,
and
was that you? Ah.
Yeah, they have
And
changed
that was a
a
long
little
time
bit
ago.
since then.
Looks
But
pretty.
they're just adjusting it almost for the sake of adjusting it while they wait for its inclusion.
Mm.
Because the other thing is you can't, without actually playtesting, you don't really know if the items are in the right positions. I mean, you can guess and make educated approximations about whether you should put a red that close to a rail, etc., and what rooms items should go in. But until you're playing it, you can't really tell whether it's going to be good gameplay from that.
Yeah, one of the problems, I guess, with not having dedicated servers and able to, run custom maps. But I suppose they will be able to update it when it goes live, but they have to go on Quake Live's schedule.
Well, I think there's some kind of legal barriers holding them up there, but
Which is unfortunate, because
I
it's
tell
only
you
going to
what,
apply to all new maps.
it's one of the most beautiful maps I've ever seen.
I have to be right back.
That
Sorry.
map, yeah, that's all right. That map is absolutely stunning, and I think all maps going forwards, if they want to be added to the pool, should look that good in no PicMip and PicMipped, because it looks great in both, because it's physical models and architecture elements that add interest to the map. Now, obviously, you need a good map layout and a good design, good item placement as well, but I think it's important to start making these maps look really good and like make people want to play the game because these maps look so beautiful.
Yeah, maybe. The only thing is, in my opinion, you need to churn out maps at quite a high rate to actually find ones that play well. I mean, if you remember how many maps, for example, the OSP map pack had, how many of them were played competitively?
Very
not
few.
many.
What, 2, 3?
There was OSP 5, OSP 6, which was obviously very
Deep
popular.
Inside
Both were very
Intervention.
popular. You had the 2v2 map, was that OSP 11?
Yeah, 11.
And then you had some that were
15.
playable but rarely got used.
15
yeah,
and
like
14.
15.
Yeah.
I
Actually,
said,
that's pretty good.
That's out of one whole map pack, and that was what, 20 plus maps?
I remember a map in OSP had like Battlesuit on top of a little platform with lava below it, and there was a quad as well, and that was like on a bridge.
Yeah, you jumped over to it. You're
Yeah, and there
talking
were some
about
pillars.
OSP
as well.
15.
Yeah, I think maybe that was actually. It looks a little bit like that new map I saw in ESR the other day. There's some big pillars by quad.
Yeah, the one from Yelak.
Yeah,
The
it seems to have drawn some
I can't remember who he works
ideas.
with, but
Kuma.
is that the Kuma? I thought that was FRS working with the Kuma. I don't know.
Huh?
Whatever, maybe both of them. But that's
Very
well,
nice.
they made Purgatory, of course, as well. So
It looks similar, not similar, but there's some ideas definitely. I think that have been drawn from OSP 15 then. But yeah, thought I'd point it out.
Yeah, very good.
People
So
wanting to check.
the other thing I wanted to talk about was the ESL and the major series. Did you see the final in VC?
I didn't really see it. I
So a
heard it
bit
was
of it, didn't
amazing,
you?
the first two maps, but mainly I just got spammed because I got blamed for the config fail.
Oh,
You
what?
got blamed for something. Why would that be?
Well, apparently it was my config with the password, but actually it was the first config they used was my config, which had no password in, and then they got another config from somewhere, and
From
that
somewhere? Who
config,
from?
Trance.
Oh,
well,
okay.
It
okay,
was. Yeah.
trans, that had the failed password, so just to clear
So
my.
it's all Trance's
Well,
fault. Is that you're blaming Trance?
I'm not blaming trans. I'm just saying my config that I sent. But overall, it was a level up TV fail, I guess, in some ways. But
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't at all. The
It's
level
a
up TV
trance
isn't.
fail.
Look, if ESL TV, this big production company, makes a mistake like that, it's their fault, isn't it? Can't be our
mm,
fault. If we'd been streaming the game, that wouldn't have happened. So we're better streamers than the whole of ESL TV.
yeah,
That's what we
well,
can
I
establish
have
from that, right?
Bit arrogant.
Right?
no, I've made the password fail a few times, but the
Yeah,
first
A few
config,
times, only a
yeah,
few.
it happened
uh,
every time when we used to stream back in '09.
yeah, but my config doesn't have the password in.
Yeah, neither does mine. It's clever thinking, eh?
And I don't even have a streaming config, so
Wow.
Yeah,
yeah,
but you've been waiting for your internet to get upgraded for how long for?
for like 9 months or so.
But once it is, streaming every day, right, Vor?
Yeah,
Gonna start doing that
streaming.
thing where you stream yourself playing and 10 people watch you.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, that'd
Streaming
be
some
fun.
public CAs,
Woohoo.
no doubt,
Yeah, public CAs and all the abuse
and
that
some
goes
FIFA
on there.
12.
You can see how you're victimised on the servers, Vor.
Yeah, you can see how people try and wind me up, and then
They try and
I have
shoot
to
you,
respond.
Vor. I mean, it's ridiculous. Can't believe it. They dare test your ability.
it's all these punks who just want to cause an issue.
So yeah, it was Kilson versus Strengths, and it's kind of close. First couple of maps, maybe. That first map, by the way, I don't watch much Duel, but Toxicity is an absolutely abysmal map.
Yeah, I mean,
Think-
I agree. I don't know
It
who
is so
decided
boring.
it was good, but
There's no
honestly, I think it's
interesting
terrible.
fights on it. I mean, it's
I think it's just whoever's in control and holds that middle map. You can just rack up so many frags. But I guess that's kind of like what's appealing to some people is watching the
well,
frags get strung
this
together.
whole thing, like Quake 3 used to be about practically every map was kind of tactical and wasn't particularly slow. Maybe T4 was the fastest you'd get, but there was
Or
quite
Hub.
yeah. But before
And
Hub was
let me
sort of
say,
added.
Hub in Quake 3 is about 1,000,000 times more interesting and
Yeah.
better to watch than Hub in Quake Live. I don't even
mean-
know why. It might be the spawn system, but
Yeah,
It's
from
just-
commentating it, like I find Hectic, Toxicity, and Aerowalk. It's just three. I mean, they're not the same, admittedly, but they just feel the same to commentate. It's like I don't
I think
know.
it kind of goes back as well to don't bring new maps in unless they're really good because, I mean, I know everyone's probably bored to some extent of DM6, but I'd still rather see the top players play each other in DM6 than I would on Toxicity.
Toxicity.
I mean, if I made a Quake Live Cup and a level up and it was dual, I would put DM6 in even if people hated it because I think it's just
Well, you said people hate it, but go and look at like the stats on
Playtime.
the ELO ranking site. I mean, it's still all ZTN and DM6.
yeah. Why remove a popular map? You know?
Isn't ZTN not in a lot of pools as well? That's
Yeah,
recently.
yeah.
What's that
But
about?
it's just the perceived thing again mentioned earlier. People think they can't learn old maps, and the pros have just got massive advantages. But these pros are still going to learn the new maps quicker than your average Joe Quake Live player, or they can just play any map into a good level. Sure, they may not be as high level as they are, the first day they play it, but the same names are still at the top of the game with the new map pool.
Well, I think
never
with
changes.
these new maps they keep bringing in, it's changing the style of gameplay, and that suits these kind of aim players. That's why you see Kilson and Strengths in the final there, because they're not particularly tactical maps. The maps they're playing. I mean, DM13, I guess, it can be pretty tactical at times, but it can be pretty fast-paced as well. But then the other team, Toxicity and Hub, that was the series of maps. You got two maps there that are just fast rush maps. People complain about TDM, like Hidden Fortress and that, but Duel's probably even worse with all these bloody little tiny, like aim-only maps.
Yeah, and I mean, let's flip it around a little bit. Do we completely want to eliminate standard maps from the pool? I think that's a seriously bad idea. Some random guy watches a stream. Wow, this map was amazing. I'm just going to go launch up Quake. Oh, I can't play it.
I
I've
see
not got
premium
premium.
maps. Yeah, that's the
You
problem. Yeah.
know, I think we have to have premium maps. You know, there has to be that option
You
there.
have to have good
Otherwise,
premium maps.
yeah, true. But I mean, if there's no premium maps in the pool, then it'd have no possibility of getting premium subscriptions. Obviously, there's always a small possibility, but
Well, I tell you what would help them if they added the right features that would make people pay for a premium subscription. I mean, just a couple of maps is not really enough, is it, in this day and age? That's just content.
Well, it's enough for Call of Duty Elite subscriptions.
well, I think the best thing to look at the moment is Tribes Ascend. They're making a ton of money, and there's no subscription involved in that. Obviously, it works differently, and I'm very, it's a different game. This is Quake Live Talking Show, but I think people should keep an eye on what kind of server model they're planning, because you have to log into a site there. There's going to be stats. I'm curious to see how they're going to do it, because there's a custom server tab in the client at the moment, and
Is it
whether
beta?
they can. It's in closed beta at the moment. You can get a key by googling, but
Googling.
I, well, facebook.com/tribes ascend, let's say. But there's a custom tab, and I've heard it's going to be full dedicated servers. Now, if they can somehow fit in full dedicated servers to their game, which it's kind of a similar model, apart from it's not on a website. You download a client, like sort of League of Legends or otherwise. Why can't id find a model that would be similar to that? Just a side thought,
Well, I think we've
I
all
don't-
said in the past that really the way they chose in a browser is effectively pointless anyway, and it just adds in complexity of trying to support the different browsers when really a game client would have suited the game a lot more.
Yeah.
So it's a
But,
shame,
I
shame
guess
they didn't go
it's-
that route, but
yeah.
I can't really change. Well, they could change it now, I suppose, but it'd be a lot of effort and for no real return at this
Let's face it, it's not going to happen.
point.
Yeah,
it's
but
not
I mean, either way, let's just keep an eye on Tribes Ascend, and let's see what server model they put into the game, because it'd be interesting. Both FPS games, both free to play model, both severely different in how they
one
approach
good,
the
one bad.
model. Well, yeah, I prefer playing Quake Live, not gonna lie, but at the same time, Tribes Ascend is something new to play, so I'm
Hey, if you
enjoying
like
that at the moment.
CTF, go to Tribes.
Well, I would like Tribes if it wasn't so floaty, but
There's a
you
weird
know.
there's a weird thing about Tribes actually. In Quake Live, everything just shoots to your crosshair. In Tribes, you get inheritance, so you shoot your crosshair, but as soon as you move, it sort of takes a part of your direction and adds it to the disc or rocket, whatever you want to fire. So it never really ends up at where your crosshair is, which is really odd. And I miss Quake when I'm shooting in Tribes. I'm not gonna lie, Quake
Quake's
is
more
the best.
simplistic.
Yeah, I mean, if Quake could be a big esport title, bigger than it is, and support Quake all the way.
So going back to the ESL though, I mean the EMS, that is the last EMS at least at present. I don't think they're ever going to add Quake back.
Really?
For
That's
Quake.
a shame.
EMS started out well though. We had TDM. We had 3 different tournaments in that, I think, maybe. They were
Either
really
2 or
popular.
3.
Every stream we did was like 400, 500 people watching, which is bigger than we get now for most streams. But obviously, actually we promoted it less in a way back then. It was just a bigger scene, I think. But then they decided to switch it to 2v2, totally killed it off, and then kind of desperately trying to go, oh well, Duel will save it. But of course, there's so many
Well,
Duel
if
Cups
you want
going
to
on.
try and
Whereas
save it, you have to admit, I guess, that Duel is probably the best bet to try and revive the
Yeah.
interest in it, because it should have some big name players from the LAN dueling scene, but I don't know.
well,
They
to
obviously
me,
decided it's not worth keeping anymore.
there's so many Duel Cups going on anyway. There's one every weekend with Zotac. I mean, and you would potentially see Kilson versus Shrinks every weekend. You could. It's like having Man United versus Liverpool every weekend or something like
Yeah.
that. I mean, would you really watch it that many times? It
Well,
would lose
I've
its
said it before.
interest.
Like, Zotac, one tournament a week for €100 or whatever it is great, but after a while, we're on what number now? It's just sort of lost its prestige. I would prefer to see Zotac switch up. One month you would have one every week, the next month you would have one a month for, quadruple the prize money that just adding all 4 weeks together. And so at least then you're getting regular Quake, but then all of a sudden you're getting one larger tournament.
Well, I don't know. I think what they do is actually good. I mean, and
It
especially
keeps
for
it
their
alive.
brand. Everybody says Zotac
Yeah.
all the time, so Zotac's done really well out of it. But
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's quite good. It just ruins a bit of the element of
Mm.
surprise. Like I remember back in the days of Quake 3, we didn't know how the Russians would be looking going into a tournament or how the Americans would do. I suppose you still don't know with the Americans, but nowadays we're so used to seeing all these players play online. You get to a LAN tournament, and even that's less interesting because you just sort
Mm.
of know what to expect because you've just watched it for the last 4 weeks
Yeah. I
beforehand.
also think like one of the other problems with 1v1 tournaments and promoting 1v1 in general or Quake Live in general is that the perceived opinion of it at the moment, I keep using that very word, but is that we need a massive player base. When I think DreamHack kind of proved that Quake Live fits in just well amongst other tournaments, keeping everybody interested. Everyone loved watching Quake Live. I know there were some die-hard StarCraft 2 fans that probably hated it, as there are with every game in esports, but I don't think we need the player base to, push. I mean, obviously id needs the player base, but Quake Live and Quake in general,
You
everyone
just
loves
want it
to
as some
watch
kind
it.
of showcase piece.
Yeah, I mean, okay, it would be great if we could build the community, but Quake Live is Quake in general is such a
The thing
difficult
is,
game to be at the top at, isn't it?
build the community, but what's that actually going to achieve for the competitive scene? Because you're not going to build a community of new players who are suddenly going to be competing and improving the competitive scene because they have to learn the game.
Hmm.
They're starting years behind people.
Yeah. I don't like using the term, but Quake as like sort of filler content is fantastic.
Oh,
As I said, proved
sacrilege.
it. But you know what I mean, though. It proved it a dream hack. Look at
I
the viewer
understand what
numbers.
your point
Uh,
is that it's non-offensive to most people. A lot of people can just get excited watching it who don't
yeah,
necessarily want to follow it. So just a one-off every now and again, just watching it, they'll
but
enjoy
I
it.
don't mean
Whereas
one off.
yeah,
I
but
mean
well, for them, I mean, if they're
yes,
watching this final and they've got a Quake while they're waiting for the next StarCraft or League of Legends or whatever crap other game, skillless scrub game that's going to be on, they watch a bit of Quake. They're not offended by it. They can enjoy it. It's over relatively quickly. They even probably recognise the players' names. So yeah, I can see how that would be quite effective.
yeah,
But at the same time, I mean, if you do that, you're just damaging the chance of Quake actually lasting very long.
yeah, definitely. But I
The
mean,
whole
like,
focus on Duel is the whole point. We've messed up the community. I mean, that's what I'm trying to point out as well about the
mm,
EMS. Started off TDM. I mean, it could have been CTF. Doesn't really matter either of those game modes. You've got more of a community going. You've got a lot of players involved. So you basically with the EMS, they're going down. They have maybe a few more extra viewers for Duel than they would have TDM. Not significant amounts, but they had more streams for
mm,
TDM. So more regular viewers for the ESL. There are more players actually playing in the cup using the site, etc. So moving away from a team game to a duel only helps them perhaps in the fact that they'll have maybe some bigger names and maybe a few more viewers on a stream in a final.
yeah.
But
Well,
overall, it's worse, and
maybe
it's
it
worse
is.
for the community.
And if you look at it as
Yeah.
well, other than the final where, it was nice to have Too Good and Joe doing it, I mean, did ESL even cover it other than that? I can't
No,
recall,
they didn't really when
sitting
it
on
was.
IRC and seeing, oh look, there's an ESL TV stream for Quake. That's
Yeah.
going to be good to watch, but it was just the final.
I mean, maybe like it's not okay. Maybe not so much an issue of who's playing the game. Maybe it's just scheduling. Like if you can put the final in a good position, it's going to bring in more viewers, like DreamHack did. Whereas if you just put Quake Live on its separate stream, you're not going to open that option up.
But the truth
Like,
is, you need to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. You can't just rely on saying, "Oh, well, it's a good filler content, it's a good little time
sure,
waster or
but
whatever," because eventually people will say, "Yeah, it is," but do you know what's even better? Another StarCraft game or something like that.
yeah,
So
that's
eventually
true.
you're just going to kill it off. You need to be able to build it up, and the viewers and some sort of regular programming and promote the streams better, and just build
Mm.
up a viewership and Quake for the
I think it's
streams
nice
and,
to
and
mix
the
both.
players. You need the player support there to actually play in these tournaments and having a team tournament. And I know why. I mean, it was Fnatic delayed the final for like I don't know 2 months or something. That's why they decided to switch from 4 versus 4, and they listened to people who were promoting 2v2 had obviously had a self-interest in that because they would probably win it very easily.
I hate 2v2.
2v2 is abysmal, and
It's
I
like
know
why?
some people say they kind of like watching it, and you can get some good games, but I mean,
You
people.
can only get games when it's teams of even levels, and really, when Noctis and Ziv were active, no one was close to them. Even
Yeah,
like there was like one game maybe where it was I think Creaser and someone else, where that was a good game against Noctis and Ziv, but
And I think
other than
it's
that,
kind
there
of
was
been like
nothing.
that in the past as well, because if you look back to the old 2v2 Cups, I think we had the Euro Cup, which everybody raves on about. But the interesting thing about that was Fox and Toxic basically raping every single team, and that was kind of just fun and funny. But you wouldn't want that every season. It would be tedious and boring. And the only match that was pretty close was in the LAN final, wasn't it, against Kula and Jibbo, was it?
I mean, another way to look at it as well, in 4v4 TDM, we kind of miss multi-pov, right? But
Yeah.
we get by.
Yeah.
In 2v2, I'd almost argue it needs multi-pov to even remotely start making it interesting. The good thing about 2v2 is the dynamic between two players. And if you're only watching one player,
It's like watching a
just,
duel
yeah,
against fresh spawning players for some of
now,
the point of views you get.
yeah. And now I'm not going to say multi-pov would save 2v2, but I would love to see both players' povs on a single screen
That
in
nothing
2v2.
nothing is saving 2v2.
Yeah.
You need very clear cut rule sets about these different modes of play. You have 1 versus 1, you have 4v4 TDM, you have CTF, which should be 4v4. Well, I suppose they could debate 5v5, but I think 4v4 is better for it. You need these things that are very clear cut. Imagine you started adding in a 2v2 CTF cup and stuff like that. I mean, the more you break it up, the more you split your viewership.
2v2 CA Cup?
2v2 CA. I mean, to be honest, if you're going to have CA, I think it should be 10v10.
Remember when I tried to cover CA with you, Disrepute, you just disappeared like halfway through every map.
I don't remember that at all.
Honestly, I think CA has the most potential.
Well, it's
Not
got the
even
bigger
joking.
player.
It's just
doesn't it?
CA just feels like one guy rockets, the other guy LGs.
Yeah, but that's just the way the balance is. I mean, this is the argument I've had as well before, is that why do you need to have the same weapon damage balance, etc., on this every mode? It has to be the same,
Well,
same spawn system, etc., blah, blah, blah. People talk about that, but most people would easily adjust if Rail did, say, 100 damage in duel, but only 80 damage in whatever, CTF or whatever.
I don't want to remember that stuff though. I
Yeah,
just
but it
want
won't
to be the
really
same.
matter that much, because it's not going to play... I mean, your gameplay might change a
I
little
mean, for some
bit, but-
people, the different game types may as well be different games
Yeah.
because they're never going to touch the other game types.
Mm.
If you
I
are like
guess so.
a high-end TDM player, you might just be a high-end TDM player who never plays any other game type. There's not that many players who are very active in all modes.
Well, I mean, if they were doing that, I really would say you need some kind of damage numbers, like just so it becomes obvious to
tells you.
newer players. It's in TF2, it's in Tribes. You hit someone. I mean, admittedly, you don't shoot as
But
fast as an
sorry,
LG
it
there.
tells you how much damage you've done to them
Yeah,
in the game.
Yeah, so you hit someone with a rocket, it tells you how much, depending on the splash damage, and depending if it's a direct hit, even with hit scan. I would say when you're shooting like an assault rifle in something like Tribes, the bloody text gets in front of the player, so you have to do it right. But I think if you were going to change the damages between, I mean, everything's sort of obvious in Quake, you learn it. But if they were going to start changing damages and that something like that ever happened, damage numbers would have to happen because people just aren't going to know. Like the lower tier players, they're going to be like, wait, this feels weaker. Is it weaker? And they're never going to know for sure. Something to think about.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of things, and I guess in future weeks we'll start discussing more about our kind of ideas of how the game maybe could be changed, improved, or things like that. You never know, it might inspire others to come up with great ideas for Quake.
Yeah, if you have a comment, put it in the YouTube comments.
We've seen
Why not?
the power of the community in the sense of the scoreboard. I mean, who was it? Gills. He just decided once and for all, let's just mock something up that id can just base their scoreboard on,
Yeah,
and then it actually
something-
gets it done.
Yeah,
It's
something
not that they
you know,
can't do it. This scoreboard. It's that they don't exactly know where to start. I guess or they just need a bit of. Just need to be told in a way. Look, this is what we want. We all agree with this. Just base it on this. Just start with this, and then adapt it further yourself if you want.
I think it's like the map thing. I've seen, you see the preview videos, and you've seen Sinkera posting on ESR saying thanks for the preview video. So, I think it's just, if they can see something, obviously it's in old mods like CPMA and OSP from Quake 3, but if they've got something in front of them, it's got community support, like you say, and they can visualize what exactly, different ideas. I guess it's just kind of, it's almost like motivation for them as well.
Yeah, and I think we have a part to play in that as well. If we want to improve streams, then really we should give them an example of the type of things we want. I mean, we see this video now, this stream. I mean, we've got these multicolors and that. Obviously, you wouldn't really want the game like this, but there could be elements in the game where you get these visual representations where the screen could change color and just add these visual elements. Like I've always said, when you pick up the quad damage, then the view on your screen should change. Like everything should maybe
I think
glow
that should just be
or
a
blue
spectator
or something.
thing. I like the idea
Well, yeah,
of
as an
it
option,
for
I'm saying.
watching the game, but not playing it.
Yeah, well, I mean, all it would be was just basically a command in the game. Now, you could have that on as you play, or
Yeah.
just the spectators could watch it like that. I mean, they had it in Painkiller when you, I don't know what item it was, but you used to go sort of black and white, didn't it? And sort of zoomed in, I think, or something like that. It had a real effect on you when you picked up a power up, and I think those kind of visual representations that you've picked up quad, this actually means something. This changes the game in some way. That could be really interesting to add, and not really too hard, I wouldn't imagine. As part of the game, just a command like quad effect 1 or whatever. You just have that on, and when they pick up quad, everything starts glowing or blue or something. You know, like it goes black and white, whatever. Some visual representation that some big moment in the game has happened. And I think we can do that as streamers anyway and help them. And I think the whole community can come up with these ideas, and mock them up. I think that's the biggest thing we can do. And
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Quake's been a community-focused game in the past, and unfortunately we don't have the means in this game to, run our own servers, create our own maps, and test them out. But there are other things we can do with the game in front of us, and at the end of the day, id Software made Quake Live, so if we want Quake Live to continue, we have to support it in whatever ways we can. And yeah, no, definitely.
Right, so I think let's wrap it up now, because it's been actually quite a long discussion. Obviously, we've got way more topics to talk about in the future, and we'll try and do this more regularly now.
Yeah, not once every 6 months.
Yeah, well, we started off quite well. We did it for like 3 weeks in a row or something, and then
Did we?
yeah, then the season of TDM ended, as I remember, and then it was kind of like, brought it up to the winter and Christmas.
I didn't like
and that.
the old format anyway. It was.
Yeah, too
I don't know.
rigid.
Yeah.
It
It takes
was.
a lot more longer as well, I guess, for you guys to come up with the topics. Whereas this, you can write the topics down, think ideas, and we can just build on it.
Well, we barely even did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, I want to get this over with so I
Just
can
general
go try out
stuff.
my new monitor.
So yeah, why don't you just tell us quickly
That's selfish.
what you mean by that, NVC, before you
Well,
go?
I got my new monitor today. Good things
what
come
is
in
it?
smaller packages apparently. It's a Samsung
Is it folded up?
S23A 700D. I like complaining. Don't buy the new BenQ, guys, if you want to play Quake Live. What you probably don't know is a lot of the Quake Live players don't like using the original BenQ because when you're playing Quake, you see black trails behind everything when you turn AMA on, and AMA is basically pixel overdrive. So, have you ever seen 2 milliseconds or 5 millisecond screens? Most of the panels in these TN panels are 5 milliseconds, and then the manufacturers like Samsung and BenQ overclock the pixel response to 2ms, grey to grey or whatever, and some do it better than others. And the BenQ on the first one, unfortunately, was very aggressive. I'm not sure whether it was like a slower panel in general, and that's why, or what the actual technical things behind it are. But what I can say is, playing Quake on the BenQ is as awful as. It's not worth the money. It's like imagine black trails behind everything you pick up, and as you move around the map, the black trails obviously move with the armors if you're using simple items, and the
There's
new
a
one's
word for
exactly
that.
the same. Yeah, it's overdrive trait. Wait, actually, you're just going to be.
Well, my word for it would be unplayable. But
Yeah, I mean, okay, it has low input lag, but would you really take low input lag over something that looks like complete garbage?
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't. I had it.
I
had
personally
the,
would. That's the
Yeah, I had the XL24100T for about a day when I was figuring out what the issue was, and you couldn't remove it. I had the XL24200T, which is the new one, in my computer for literally 15 seconds. I loaded Quake Live, loaded Thunderstruck, sidestepped, saw the horrible black trail, decided I didn't want to run with overdrive off at 5 milliseconds, packed it up and returned it. And now I've got a Samsung, which has a
So it was
tiny
a
bit
thorough
higher input
review,
lag.
you're saying.
Well, it didn't need to be.
it doesn't
thorough
need to
review.
be. It's already killed itself in the
Yeah.
first few seconds.
And it's probably not right for me to completely slate.
It is. It's
product.
completely
No, it is.
right. And
Look, it's
secondly,
called honesty.
if a company wants to do that kind of thing, they deserve to go bust, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. We've got the chat open now. MP will say 5 millisecond. It's all in your mind. 5 ms is fine. It's not because
NEC is very sensitive.
It is
yeah, I
ridiculously
guarantee
sensitive.
it looks a lot worse. I can promise you that. My ViewSonic at 3 ms looks 10 times better than the BenQ with overdrive off. And the new Samsung I've got here has a glossy screen, which can be quite bad in environments with windows behind you. But the overdrive, I'm told, is perfect. So it's going to run actually at 2 ms and not look like garbage.
Hopefully.
And yeah, I mean, Faz uses it, Trans uses it.
Otherwise,
It's
there'll be
gonna
another
good.
scathing review on the horizon.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you can put up a review on levelupyourgame.net NVC
Well, if it's
when you've
if it's
experienced it a
good,
bit.
yeah, if it's
What do
good,
you mean if
I'll-
it's good?
I'll
If
promote
it's
it.
bad, people want to know what's bad.
Yeah, just give us a
Yeah,
direct
well,
comparison
I
between
always-
the two
I always say
monitors.
things about
Look,
it,
if you
but,
want to put my name on it because you're scared or something, then you can do it. But
what I will say is that the
Vore will take the
ViewSonic and the
plaudits.
Samsung are like less than 15 ms input lag, which isn't much at all. Obviously, they're playable, certainly, and everyone uses them. This one is like 11 and below, and then of course the values aren't entirely accurate. And the BenQ is like 5, but with the BenQ you get garbage panel quality, so it's not worth it. I like to flame them because they should sort it out. They don't need someone to tell them what they want. They need
And
someone to
it's
tell them what they
marketed
don't want.
as a gamer monitor, is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
like
that is just despicable, mate.
I'm not going to go into it in more detail, but like I say, they need someone to tell them what they don't want.
They need
not
to
what-
employ you,
not what we
NVC.
want. Well, they don't need to employ me. They just need to realise that the old
Oh,
reviews
well, they
pointed
can
it
employ
out.
me then. I'll just tell them your ideas, and I'll get paid
Well,
for it. No
they would-
problem.
If they want to employ me, they can.
Yeah, there you
but
go. Oh,
Why-
look at him selling his soul now.
The old
Unbelievable,
the old,
NVC.
the old reviews for the first monitor all pointed out this issue. How did they not fix it and yet still
Well,
have
they don't
the
actually
cheek
make the
to
panels,
advertise it
that's
as
the
a
thing,
gaming
is it?
monitor? Well,
They
yeah,
just
but
buy the
if
cheapest
I-
ones, clearly.
If I had that, they've got two pro gamers advertising it. Now, if that was my
Who?
job, Heaton and Spawn. Now, if
Oh,
that was
yeah,
my
they
job
do
to
those
go
ones,
there,
Those experts.
go there and tell them, just give them my stamp of approval, even though it's probably just a marketing stunt or whatever. I would be like, what is this black trail behind everything that
In
moves?
Quake.
But it's like
Maybe
you
it's
notice it in
perfect in CS.
Counter-Strike.
Oh, you do.
No, you notice it,
Wow.
but it's a little bit less obvious because the colours aren't as
Because they
bland.
walk
but-
around in slow motion and just crouch.
Yeah, and you've got textures and stuff, but in Quake where pick map 16, it's impossible. And I would if you were going to buy a new monitor, just please stay away. And if you do buy it, I told you so.
Great, so we're looking forward to NVC's interesting review of his new Samsung monitor in comparison to the BenQ. And Vore, I believe you got some new hardware.
oh, well, I got a new mouse. I'm relieved. I mean, I've just heard that Spawn was promoting those BenQ ones that are terrible, and he promotes the Zowie AM, which I just bought. But fortunately, that seems pretty good.
No, they've done a good job with them. I mean, the Zowie is different, isn't it? The BenQ and the Zowie are different brands, and the
Yeah.
EC1 and EC2 are good. They use
Just
the,
if they
I
both
had the
carry the
EC2.
same seal of approval, and one maybe hasn't justified that seal of approval. I was maybe a bit worried there for a moment.
I'm sure
Well-
Spawn is on the case, though, anyway, so...
Yeah, I mean, this mouse was apparently designed for Spawn because he doesn't like the prediction in the EC2.
So this is no prediction in the
Yeah.
Zowie AM, and it's a
Ambidextrous shape.
ambidextrous shape.
I actually have a fun fact, actually.
Side buttons, though.
Side buttons as well, yeah.
Mm.
I think it's supposed
No
to be very
software.
similar to the WMO, but in shape, but just with side buttons.
That's what I especially love about the
Oh,
Zowie
no
mouse,
software,
though, is
yes.
no software, because I remember those crappy Logitech mice you used to have to get and install that rubbish, the same with Razer.
Oh yeah, I didn't like
I
how
like
it's
the
crap.
Razer
Crap,
Razer
right,
but-
man, the Razer drivers are a disgrace.
I mean, didn't is this still the case with Razer? You have to install the drivers to change the DPI.
Yes.
Well, that's just.
Well, I don't
Bad.
know, the newer mice might not, but on the Jeff Adder, yeah, I've got the latest one.
I mean, with this mouse, it's just a button on the bottom, and you
Yeah.
can switch DPI.
It's
But
pretty
like, what's interesting about the EC1, EC2, you said they didn't like the prediction, but the Logitech G400, which is the MX518 sensor, the newer variants, some with a certain product ID, it's in my recommendations article on the Level Up TV site, have no prediction, but you can't actually change it in the firmware. It just comes with no prediction. So
Yeah, what sensor is it they use in the Zowie AM? But yeah, they take whatever sensor that is, which is considered to be the best or something they said with no prediction, and they just make some adjustments to it apparently.
yeah. Oh, you say it's got low lift-off distance as well, which is nice.
Yeah, the lift-off distance is pretty much non-existent.
Like I like the Death Adder, but I have to mod it myself to keep the lift off distance low. And
Yeah, I like the Death Adder. I used to use one, and really, once I went with something that had low liftoff, I could never go back to it.
Mm.
Right, so there we go. A little bit of hardware talk in there as well. So thank you, everybody, for joining us on Level Up TV. For we're talking episode, what is it, 5? I think actually, I'm gonna have to check
Don't
those.
know.
Because we did one on Twitch, but we never uploaded it to YouTube.
I thought it
It
was
that kind of
4.
weird one. Yeah, this might be 4 then. Yeah, well, I'm not sure. So, thanks everybody,
Mm.
and goodbye.
Oh wait, make sure you leave a comment on YouTube if you have any, the thing you want to say.
Okay.
Leave comments. Enjoy.
Leave some comments on ISC, and I'll be sure to respond.